And in part, that was the inspiration for why we ultimately decided to pursue financial independence.
Yeah. Kiersten, I'm curious what you have to add on that.
Yeah, it was the same thing. It was, for me, it was more of a process of accepting that the game was rigged. I think for most of my life, I had done well. I had succeeded in the institutions that I had been exposed to, whether it's school or even just early in my career. I was very good at working my way up and getting promoted. But there was a point where when I looked up and saw what could be next for me, there was no one who looked like me. There was no one who had the same background as me. A lot of those spots seemed to be kind of pre-filled or pre-assigned. And then I started realizing like, oh, I've reached my peak. Even if I go up another level, like to Julian's point, what am I giving up to get there? And it was a matter of coming to grips with this idea that the story that I had been sold around you can be or do whatever you want just wasn't going to happen in this pathway. And to Julian's point, when I started breaking down all of the isms, whether it's sexism, ageism, ableism, racism, nepotism, I was in several of those categories that would likely be excluded for other reasons. And I just couldn't see myself putting another 30 years in the tank of this effort to make something happen. And so once I accepted it, it became a lot easier to understand that if I put the same effort that I was putting into my career, into my financial intentions and planning, I could get a similar, if not much better result over here. And so that was a shift for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I feel like I identify with some of the things that you shared there, in terms of like why I was motivated to pursue entrepreneurship and financial independence in the first place. I think for me, it was, I constantly was like in an environment where I felt like I had to prove myself. And I was like, but I was never actually good enough. Like, it's like I didn't have the right education.
Yeah.
I needed to say yes to everything. I wasn't allowed to push back. I wasn't allowed to set it's like there were consequences if I tried to set boundaries. And my male colleagues would do the same thing. And it would be like, oh, great. You can, set your boundary. And for me, it would be like, well, we can't promote you because you don't manage your work independently enough.
Right.
Right.
It was always something. It was like, you need to manage up more, but also be nice when you do it, but also be firm and authoritative, but not that much, because now it looks like you're scope creeping. It was a ridiculous game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like take more initiative, but
Get
don't do
permission
things
first.
that aren't important.
Exactly.
Or like don't do don't do the things that you're not being told to do. Right. All of those things, right? Like it definitely felt like it was like, how do you win at this game? And, for me too, coming at this as someone with mental health challenges too, with depression and anxiety and, just like a lower level of energetic capacity, I think, than many people. I similarly looked at the work environment and said, like, it's not possible for me with this sort of the level of energetic capacity that I have to be able to win at this game and have the life that I want outside of work. Yep. I kind of feel like for many people, I don't think, even for people who don't have mental health challenges and like do have a higher energetic capacity, I still don't see how they can like win at the career game and still have the life that they want. It's like hard to imagine that, unless we reframe what winning at the career game means. And I think that's one thing that I'm really trying to, like, that's a message that I want to get across to people, is like winning at the career game doesn't have to mean like you become the CEO and you make the most money and you continue to, increase your income and your influence and, continue to climb that corporate ladder. Like that, I think that work structure doesn't actually work for most people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so kind of going into that, like I'll say this isn't one of the questions I gave you, but I'm actually really curious to hear from your perspective. Like in general, what does winning at the work game mean to you now?
For me, it's the ability to walk away from any situation at any point with your dignity intact. That is winning. That, to me, the ability to have your dignity throughout life and all of the other things that require it outside of work is going to be a bigger contributor to quality of life than any salary, any title, any promotion. It's the ability to walk away. And even though that's my own personal values for my life, it's been proven and through data as well. Like you can look at the data of people who have left jobs or have switched jobs, and they end up being higher earners than people who have stayed where they are. Even if you look at the wage lifts that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years, they're driven by people who were willing to walk away from a comfortable situation and try something new. And so whether it's because you want to have some sort of autonomy emotionally like I do, or if it's just you want to maximize your earning potential, the ability to walk away and having enough of a cushion in either your financial life or your personal life to do so is what winning looks like in the modern career for me.
I would add to that that is relevant both for people who are traditional workers as well as as entrepreneurs,
I agree.
right? Like that's not something that is just unique to people who are employed. That is a very powerful, feeling to have as an entrepreneur. You want to be able to say, actually, no, going back to the example that I said before, we made a commitment to spend more time as a family this summer. As a result, we're not going to take on this project. We're going to turn that down, as opposed to constantly chasing every single dollar that is offered to you. You want to be able to say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. And oddly enough, as entrepreneurs, we found that in many ways that actually just makes you a more attractive